Rain lashed against Caleb Turner's truck as he sped through the dark, twisting roads of Willow Creek, Georgia. His phone buzzed with his sister's desperate voice. "Caleb, we're going to lose everything." At 27, he was already drowning in debt, but what waited at the end of this road was no ordinary lifeline. A mysterious woman, a shadowy farm, and a contract that could save his family or trap him in a web of secrets. "You're a Turner," she'd said, her voice cold as the rain. "That's why I chose you." What had Caleb just walked into, and would he ever walk out? Welcome to A Story That Lingers. Before we continue, let us know in the comments, where are you watching? If these stories resonate with you, please hit that subscribe button to support the channel, because tomorrow we'll have another special story for you. Rain drummed against the windshield as Caleb Turner drove through the winding roads of Willow Creek, Georgia. The headlights caught a faded sign, "Welcome to Willow Creek," where time slows down. But for Caleb, time never slowed. At 27, he was drowning in bills, scraping by as a chef in Atlanta, and haunted by a past he'd rather forget. His phone buzzed, slicing through his thoughts. It was Lila, his little sister. "Caleb, you gotta come home." Her voice crackled, urgent. "Dad's in trouble. We might lose the house." Caleb gripped the steering wheel tighter. He hadn't spoken much to his dad, James, since their mom died 10 years ago. But Lila was all he had left, and he couldn't let her down. "I'm on my way," he said, his voice steady, despite the knot in his chest. Willow Creek emerged through the rain, its oak-lined streets glistening under streetlights. Caleb pulled into Daisy's Diner, a cozy spot with neon signs and the smell of fresh coffee. Inside, he slid into a corner booth, the vinyl squeaking under his jeans. The jukebox played a soft country tune as he waited for Lila. A woman entered, catching his eye. She was older, maybe mid-60s, with silver hair pulled into a neat bun and a tailored coat that screamed money. Her gaze locked onto him. "Caleb Turner," she asked, her voice smooth but commanding. He nodded, wary. "That's me. Do I know you?" She sat across from him, uninvited. "I'm Margaret Holloway, owner of Holloway Creek Farm. I have a proposition for you." Caleb leaned back, crossing his arms. "How do you know my name?" Margaret, Maggie, she insisted, smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I know about your dad's troubles. The debts, the scandal. I know you're barely keeping your head above water. Work for me at the farm for 3 months and I'll clear your family's debts." Caleb's jaw tightened. "What's the catch?" "A confidentiality agreement," she said, sliding a paper across the table. "You live at the farm, keep your mouth shut, and do your job. That's all." "Why me?" He pressed his voice low. Her eyes glinted under the diner's lights. "You're a Turner, that's enough. But unlike your father, you have a chance to do something right." She stood, leaving the contract behind. "Think it over, Caleb, but don't take too long." The rain hadn't let up when Caleb drove to his dad's place, a modest ranch house on the edge of town. Lila was waiting on the porch, her blonde hair damp. She hugged him tight. "I'm so glad you're here." Inside, James sat at the kitchen table, looking older than Caleb remembered. Gray hair, thinning shoulders slumped. "Didn't expect you," James said, his voice gruff. "Didn't plan on coming," Caleb shot back, then softened. "Lila says we're in trouble." James sighed, rubbing his temples. "Bank's calling in the loan. I messed up, son, years ago, never fixed it." Caleb thought of Maggie's offer. It felt wrong, but losing the house would break Lila. "I'll figure something out," he promised. The next morning, Caleb returned to Daisy's Diner. Maggie was there sipping tea as if she knew he'd show. "You've decided," she said, not looking up from her newspaper. "I'm in," Caleb said, his voice firm. "But I want it in writing. You clear the debts." She smiled faintly. "Smart boy, it's already drafted. You start tomorrow." Holloway Creek Farm loomed at the end of a gravel drive, its sprawling fields framed by ancient oaks. The main house was a relic of old Southern money. White columns wrap around porch windows, dark like empty eyes. Caleb stepped out of his truck, suitcase in hand, feeling like he'd walked into someone else's story. Maggie greeted him in the foyer, her heels clicking on polished wood. "Welcome, Caleb," she said. "Hank, my foreman, will show you to your room. Dinner's at 7. Don't be late." Hank, a wiry man in his 50s with a sun-weathered face, led Caleb upstairs. "Nice place," Caleb said, trying to break the silence. Hank grunted. "Looks nice. Don't dig too deep, kid. You won't like what you find." Caleb's room was small but comfortable. A twin bed, a desk, and a window overlooking the fields. That night he sat at the dining table, Maggie at the head, dressed in silk, like she was hosting a gala. The food was good. Roasted chicken, cornbread, collards. But the silence was heavy. "You're a chef," I hear Maggie said, cutting her chicken with precision. "You'll run the kitchen, keep the staff fed." Caleb nodded. "I can do that. But why all the secrecy? What's really going on here?" Maggie's fork paused. "Curiosity's a dangerous thing, Caleb. Focus on your work and we'll get along fine." Over the next few days, Caleb settled into a routine. Cooking for the farmhands, cleaning the kitchen, avoiding Maggie's sharp gaze. But the farm felt off. Locked doors lined the upstairs hall, and the staff whispered when they thought he wasn't listening. One night, Lila visited, her eyes wide as she took in the place. "This is creepy," she said, sitting on his bed. "Why is she so weird about everything?" "No idea," Caleb admitted. "But the money's good. We need it." Lila wandered to the library downstairs where she found a photo tucked in a book. A younger Maggie with a man Caleb didn't recognize, and another couple. "Caleb, look," she whispered, pointing to the man. "Doesn't he look like Dad?" Caleb's stomach dropped. The resemblance was uncanny. "That's impossible," he said, but doubt gnawed at him. That night, unable to sleep, Caleb crept to the library. The house was silent save for the creak of floorboards. He rifled through Maggie's desk, finding old financial records. A failed real estate deal from 20 years ago, linked to Willow Creek Bank where his dad had worked. One name stood out, Margaret Holloway. She lost everything in the deal. A floorboard creaked behind him. Caleb spun, heart pounding. It was Hank. "Told you not to dig," he said, his voice low. "Get back to bed before she catches you." The next day, Caleb called Lila. "Dig into Dad's old job at the bank," he said. "Something's not right." Lila texted him later, "Found something. Dad was involved in a shady deal. People lost their savings. Maggie was one of them." Caleb's blood ran cold. Maggie wasn't just offering him a job. She was settling a score. That night he overheard her on the phone in her study. "Make sure he stays put," she said, her voice sharp. "We're too close to let him ruin it." Ruin what, Caleb wondered. He needed answers, but confronting Maggie felt like walking into a trap. Instead, he went to his dad. James was in the garage, tinkering with an old radio. "Dad, we need to talk," Caleb said, shutting the door. "What happened with Maggie Holloway? Why is she after me?" James's hand stilled. "I didn't know she was involved," he said, his voice heavy. "Back in the day, I worked on a real estate project. It went south. People got hurt. I didn't mean for it to happen, but I should have stopped it." "Did you know Maggie lost everything?" Caleb asked. James nodded. "Not at first. By the time I did, it was too late. She came after me years ago, swore she'd make me pay." Caleb's fist clenched. "And now she's using me to get to you." "I'm sorry, son," James said, his eyes wet. "I never wanted you dragged into this." Caleb drove back to the farm, his mind racing. Maggie was waiting in the foyer, her arms crossed. "You've been busy," she said, her tone icy. "Talking to your father, poking around my business." "I know what you lost," Caleb said, stepping closer. "But I didn't do it. Why am I here?" Maggie's eyes narrowed. "You're here because I chose you. Your father took everything from me, my home, my husband, my life. Now you'll help me take it back." "Take what back?" Caleb demanded. She smiled, cold and sharp. "You'll see. Just do your job or your family loses more than a house." Caleb's heart pounded as he walked away. Maggie wasn't just after revenge. She was planning something bigger. He needed help. The next day he slipped into town and found Detective Sarah Brooks at the police station. She was a no-nonsense woman with a sharp gaze and a southern drawl. "I think Maggie Holloway's up to something illegal," Caleb said, keeping his voice low. "She's got me trapped at her farm, and I found papers about a bad deal my dad was part of." Sarah leaned forward. "Holloway's been on my radar. She's tied to some shady real estate deals. Got any proof?" "Not yet," Caleb admitted, "but I can get it." "Be careful," Sarah warned. "Maggie's smart. If she catches you, she won't play nice." Back at the farm, Caleb bided his time watching Maggie's every move. She met with strangers in suits, always behind closed doors. One night while she was out, he slipped into her study. The desk was locked, but he jimmied it open with a paperclip. Inside was a folder labeled Willow Creek Redevelopment. It detailed a plan to sell the farm to a shady corporation with forged documents and offshore accounts. Maggie was laundering money, and Caleb was her cover, a local boy to make the deal look clean. His hands shook as he photographed the papers. A shadow fell across the desk. He turned and Maggie stood in the doorway, her face a mask of fury. "You just couldn't leave it alone," she said, stepping closer. "You're just like your father, always sticking your nose where it doesn't belong." Caleb stood his ground. "I know about the money laundering, the fake deals. You're not just after revenge. You're breaking the law." Maggie laughed bitter. "You think you're so clever. My husband killed himself after your father's deal ruined us. I lost everything. This is justice." "Justice," Caleb snapped. "You're hurting people, Maggie, just like you claim my dad did." Her eyes softened for a moment, pain flickering through. "You don't know what it's like to lose it all," she whispered, "to wake up every day with nothing." "Then stop," Caleb said, his voice firm. "Turn yourself in. Make it right." Maggie shook her head. "It's too late for that." The next night a storm rolled in thunder, shaking the farm. Caleb met Sarah in the woods behind the house, handing her the photos. "This is enough to take her down," Sarah said, tucking them into her jacket. "But we need to move fast." They crept to Maggie's study, rain pounding the windows. Sarah rifled through the desk, finding more evidence. Bank records, emails, proof of the laundering. Lightning flashed and Maggie appeared in the doorway, a gun in her hand. "Drop it," she said, her voice steady. "You're not ruining this, Caleb." Caleb's heart raced. "Maggie, it's over. The police know everything. Put the gun down." Sarah stepped forward, hands raised. "Mrs. Holloway, don't make this worse. We can work it out." Maggie's hand trembled, her eyes darting between them. "You don't understand," she said, her voice breaking. "I did this for him, for my husband." Caleb took a step closer. "He wouldn't want this?" "You're better than this, Maggie. Let it go." For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then Maggie lowered the gun, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so tired," she whispered. Sarah cuffed her gently, leading her outside as police lights flashed through the rain. The trial was quick. Maggie pleaded guilty, her testimony sparing Caleb's family. She looked at him from the stand, her eyes soft. "I'm sorry," she said, and he believed her. A year later, Caleb stood outside his new restaurant, Turner's Table in Willow Creek. The air smelled of fresh paint and cornbread. Lila worked the counter, laughing with customers, while James helped in the kitchen, a spark of pride in his eyes. Caleb had used the reward money to clear their debts and start the diner. With the rest, he set up the Lila Turner Foundation, a scholarship for families hit by financial fraud. At the opening, Caleb spoke to a small crowd. "My mom taught me that pain doesn't be undone, but it can be turned into something good. This place, this fund, is for second chances." That night he sat on the porch, a letter from Maggie in his hands. It read, "Caleb, I've had time to think. Revenge was my prison, but you showed me there's another way. Thank you for being kinder than I deserved. Use the farm for something better than I did. Maggie." He folded it carefully, looking at the stars. The past was heavy, but for the first time he felt free. Thank you for joining us on Caleb's incredible journey through the shadows of moonlit secrets. His story reminds us that even in the darkest nights, there's a light of hope and forgiveness waiting to shine through. If this tale moved you, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and let's spread the message of second chances far and wide. Don't forget to subscribe to A Story That Lingers for more heartfelt tales that stir the heart and lift the spirit. What would you have done in Caleb's shoes? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, take care and keep chasing the light.